Hi, this is Tyler Matthews with Venture Café St. Louis, and this is another episode of People Behind the Innovation. Today I have Michael Gallagher with me from Accenture, and we're going to talk about the upcoming next event with Accenture, talking about the new and all kinds of cool topics around artificial intelligence and human-centered design and other cool topics as well. Michael, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate the opportunity to describe our company and a little bit about what we're up to.
Awesome. So if we started off with just introducing yourself a little bit, what you do and what Accenture's all about.
Sure. So my name is Michael Gallagher. I've been with Accenture this go-around about 23 years. I actually started out in a group back in Chicago in the mid-'80s called Computer Aids to Tax Practice. And back then, just to give a little timeline because I think it's relevant, my first assignment for Arthur Anderson in that group, Computer Aids to Tax, was to figure out how do we merge graphics and text in a DOS green screen platform. So I went out to San Francisco to the Hotel Embarcadero and met some folks that now are household names, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, at one of the first Cyber desktop computing conferences. So although I'm only in my early 50s, I've kind of watched technology and innovation sort of occur during my entire working career. So been in St. Louis for 26 years now, native of Chicago. And like I said, I've rejoined the firm, what was known as Anderson Consulting, back in 1994. I've been in our health and life science practice and have led a lot of our innovation and technology systems integration projects to apply technology solutions into a large, whether they're health insurance companies or products, life sciences, pharma companies. That's where I've spent most of my career.
Awesome. So explain about Accenture and what you guys are looking to do at the next event, what kind of topics we're talking about, how does it apply to what you guys are doing today?
Sure. It's no surprise to everybody how fast technology is evolving, the different platforms and the constant evolution. Our DNA as a company is fairly straightforward. We've never been a hardware manufacturer. Historically, we've not been in the, quote, software business, although we've been acquiring some software-type capabilities and more recently, quite a number of what are called digital agencies. So our DNA goes back to something called systems integration. So being agnostic, our focus has always been on the client and the client's agenda. What is the client trying to do to differentiate themselves and to advance in the marketplace? And our people particularly focus on that. And when we really feel we understand what the client's trying to do, that's when we spin around on our heels and we look backwards at $34 billion, 401,000 person Accenture and say, okay, what is it that we can offer to advance that business agenda? So being so client-centric has allowed us to, frankly, dream up and put together ideas where we can apply technology to solve clients' issues or to advance them on the innovation front. So it's a unique perch, I think, in the technology world.
So explain that a little bit. What's the type of innovation that Accenture is fostering right now? What are you looking to do?
Yeah, so a great example would be around sensors or RFID technology, and I'll describe a couple of examples that occurred years ago. So one of the large retail stores you would immediately recognize here, we came up with the idea of RFID, radio frequency ID tagging, the jewel boxes. If anyone remembers what a jewel box was, they used to hold things called CDs.
Oh, okay, that kind of jewel box, right?
That kind of jewel box, yeah. It's funny because I saw on Vintage Vinyl last night. Vintage Vinyl is on fire down on Del Mar right now. Mm-hmm. They're selling all kinds of vinyl records, which, maybe jewel boxes will come back. But we came up with the idea that we could put those tags on 100 jewel boxes, run them through a doorway, and automatically decrement from the store all the way back to the factory in Asia, the manufacturing supply chain. So I'll make this up. Someone would buy a Madonna CD back then, and the entire supply chain, every part of it, would know that that CD was bought, and then all of the purchasing and procurement and supplying of all the product to restock that particular CD on a store shelf in Minneapolis would all occur automatically just by moving that CD through a doorway because it had an RFID tag. So it was that, again, we're taking a common almost a commodity technology, RFID, and applying it to that process. Another great example of what we do, innovation and technology, was for a large heavy equipment manufacturing company. When you have capital-intensive products like bulldozers and, let's say, cement trucks, when that equipment is not moving, it's not making money. So it's capital that's not deployed and so forth. We were able to take fundamental computer technology and deploy sensors on let's just pick a bulldozer, over 200 sensors on the bulldozer. And even though that bulldozer is on a mountain in Jakarta, we were able to beam data up to a satellite that's calculating what's called mean time to failure. We knew when every part on that bulldozer was going to fail. And the intent was to never let the part fail, to let the bulldozer stop bulldozing. So by knowing when they were going to fail using mathematics, we were able to replace parts before they failed and effectively have the tractor and the bulldozer never stop working. That's an example of something that generated tremendous value for our client. And when the United States Navy heard of this, they had a similar problem. An aircraft carrier with fighter jets parked on the aircraft deck is not very useful if the jets can't fly off the aircraft carrier because parts had failed and you don't have parts available. So again, the application of technology, integration, and solving an important business problem.
That's awesome. Now, you guys are applying this like really awesome innovation to your clients. Are you guys doing stuff internally as well, or what does that look like? How is it affecting your operations for yourselves?
Tyler, great question. The way the firm has evolved, it's interesting. As big as we are, we have this unique, uncanny ability. Again, I've been here over 2 decades. We have the ability to pivot very, very fast. And I mean like months, the whole organization, and frankly get to where, I know this is a bit of a cliche, but we kind of identify where the puck is going to be, and we get to where the puck is going to be before it's there. And by the time our competition figures out where that is, we've already left. So to speak tactically, we've broken up the firm into a number of different focus areas: Accenture Research, our venture arm, our laboratories where we do literally pure research. In this day and age, a lot of folks may not be aware of some of the premier research laboratories that founded a lot of large organizations, right? Bell Laboratories may be familiar to people. Park. People that have an Apple phone ought to thank Xerox for Park. Park was the acronym for Palo Alto Research Center that Steve Jobs happened to be walking through one day and identified something called a graphical user interface. So we have a lab just like that. We buy stuff, all kinds of stuff, and we just play with it. We look for ways to make those technologies commercially viable. We bring our clients in and we test and play and experiment in our labs. We have a couple other businesses. Our studios business focuses on rapid development, prototyping of apps, the creation of digital services. Our innovation centers located strategically around the world. And by strategically, I mean Palo Alto, Sophia Antipolis, Boston, the places you would expect where high-density talent is located. And then we have our delivery centers. So these are the places around the country. An example would be in Tennessee, we have 2 delivery centers. We don't even have a formal office in Tennessee, yet we have hundreds of people in Knoxville and Nashville doing delivery of different solutions for clients.
Very nice. So, and also tying back into with the next event on May 25th is, I guess what we want to talk about is what is exciting for you right now in the market? What's exciting for Accenture? Like, what are you guys really jazzed up about?
All I could say is everything, right? The challenge with Accenture is being aware of all the really, really neat stuff that we're doing across the businesses. So, for example, I've spent most of my career in health and public service. In the St. Louis market, we've really focused on all industries except 2. And the reasons are pretty simple. The 2 industries we've not really focused on ever, and we've been here, by the way, since 1943. Started out in the Railway Exchange Building and so forth. So we've been around a long time.
Yeah.
But financial services, the second largest employer in the St. Louis region after health, we've not really focused on that industry. And then city, county, and state government, right? So as I looked out around the United States and the world, frankly, and what Accenture is doing in financial services and in the government sector, it is amazing some of the things that we're doing. So what I'm personally jazzed about, and a number of other people in our office is how can we take what we're doing in New York City, in Singapore, in the Scandinavian countries with self-driving cars, our work with the largest auto manufacturers in the world, the things you read about, right? We are intimately involved with those clients, driving a lot of that technology and moving things forward. So our 5 businesses, right? Financial services, health and public service, communications, media and technology, chemicals and natural resources. They're doing unique things within their own industries. We're taking all of the technology and the innovation and figuring out, hey, is there something going on in products, consumer packaged goods, that is really far ahead? And what if we were to apply that to the health market, right? So there's some really interesting cross-fertilization going on.
Yeah, very cool. Wanted to see, too, if you could speak a little bit about, you mentioned RFID, some of the cool things you're doing there. With regards to artificial intelligence, things along those lines,
Sure.
Can you share a little bit of what's going on there?
The hardest thing, I believe, for our clients is that the consulting firms, us included, sometimes will drive a lot of hype around certain things. So let's talk about artificial intelligence for a second. At the base level, we would call this robotic process automation, or RPA for short, right? This is, if you're old like me and you go back to before there was such a thing as Lotus 1-2-3, there were products called VisiCalc and Multimate, mainframe-based spreadsheet software products. And a guy named Bill Gates thought, wow, what if we were to put that on a PC, right? And he had a couple things in his pocket, BASIC and DOS. So fast forward just a couple of years, and all of a sudden, there's company Lotus 1-2-3, and I was writing macros. What did macros do? When we were doing tax software using spreadsheet software, we were simply automating the linkages and the calculations between input sheets. Now, it would amaze people today, but back then on what was an 8086 chip or an 8088, you could actually watch the screens change because the processing power wasn't what it is today. Today, you couldn't even see the execution, right? So that's what robotic process automation is today at the base level. It's automating a rote commodity function that a human may be doing today. Example, matching invoices to purchase orders. Why would a human do that when a bot can do it 24/7? By the way, the bot doesn't need to rest, eat, sleep, nothing. And the quality is through the roof. So that's the base level. Let me step up another level, right? Cognitive computing. What is it that machines can learn, machine learning, that would allow them to learn from a mistake and then change the direction, tree logic effectively, right? And right now, technology is really, there's a sort of a dotted vertical line that is right after machine learning or cognitive. So you go from RPA to machine, cognitive, and then off to the right is the land of, I guess the only way I could call it is Jarvis from Iron Man. It's the AI where...
Super artificial,
right? Where Jarvis is instructing Tony, you're too high, you're going to freeze up the systems. Proactively thinking, right? Out ahead of the human. So that is where people are aiming and targeting. We're not quite there yet in the AI space, I would say. In fact, I would reference people, even in this morning's Wall Street Journal, if you look on the inside of the first page, there's a great article about the disconnect with the evidence and data about automation and AI and RPA. Certain jobs, sure. Financial services, big companies like BlackRock saying, we don't think humans can do this investing thing as well as the machine can now. And that could easily be argued. My financial wealth advisor, she is not awake at 2:30 in the morning paying attention to what's happening on the Hong Kong markets. But my machine is, right? My machine would be able to rebalance, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the area where robotics is and automation is really taking a hold in some of the higher end functions like financial services and other areas like that, where it's not, and this is the argument made in Wall Street Journal, is in the more labor intensive jobs. So service jobs in a hotel. Robots haven't taken over yet, although we are doing some interesting stuff in other parts of the world with robots delivering room service and so forth. But we're still a little ways off. So we're actually seeing an escalation in hospitality, service jobs. Robots are not changing the sheets in the hotel beds and so forth. those are still human beings. We think humans can be put to different, more
right. So they can spend their
use.
time on more interesting things that they can do, applying creativity and intelligence versus more things like that.
More manual labor,
yeah.
And so that's the big debate running around in higher technology, right? What's going to happen to people that do these jobs that may not have the skills, right? So that's why you're reading about certain people talking about what actually will be the role for people that hold those jobs today. And it seems to be pointing towards learning new skills for the new world. And we arguably don't know what a lot of those new skills are going to need to be.
Right. Anything you can share that you're working on right now around these topics that we've just been discussing?
Sure.
I don't know.
No, I described one without naming any of our clients' names. I was on a call this morning where we were the team that had done some work for a large United States city police department around analytics. And I've been aware of this for a while because I'm looking to bring it here to St. Louis. But it's fascinating to look at the way they've taken existing data and, for lack of a better word, mashed it up, produced analytics that are now allowing predictive behavior analytics around the way officers by officer would behave in a particular situation.
Oh, wow. Almost like Minority Report here.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because we did something in London 2 years ago where we actually took 700 offenders out of the database. And by the way, in the UK, it's not about guns, it's more about knives. And we were able to winnow that population of 700 offenders, identify tribes of gangs, and effectively create what's called a neural network, the relationship strength between the different gang members. And using, again, big data and mathematics, identify on a future date, let's say May 26th on Friday between 1 and 6 p.m., which 7 people were going to stab which 7 people and where they were going to stab them and who was going to stab who before it ever happened. And our prediction came true. And it made people go a little bit nuts. They thought it was an invasion of privacy. It wasn't because we took the existing data. We weren't monitoring anybody. It was all historical data. For the statistics geeks out there, it was descriptive data. We used descriptive data to produce predictive statistics, correlation, and then identify predicted behavior, right? So that is a little bit scary, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of TV shows on now that are going down this.
There's a handful of movies, I think some sci-fi plots around that.
Yeah, there's some things going on about what the machine is watching and observing.
Right. It's no longer sci-fi, I guess. It's speculative fiction, at best, I guess, right? Now it's actually in works. But there's probably a lot of little rabbit trails we could go down there, but I won't take us into some of these more philosophical discussions. But it's very interesting work in general.
I can tell, Tyler, that this piques your interest.
Yeah, definitely does. I'm a sci-fi geek a little bit.
All right, yeah.
So maybe we'll talk more offline. But no, it's very cool.
For our clients, it really is about understanding the way, at this point with technology so evolved, it's down to a market of one, right? So when you are interacting with technology, whether it's your laptop, mobile, an environment, we're looking at the way different individuals react and behave with technology in different situations. Obviously, a lot of our clients are all publicly traded, profit-driven organizations. So when you walk into certain stores, as an example, you notice, I think people have figured this out, you walk in, most stores are oriented, you go to the right, and you circle around and so forth and so on. Well, the science and the technology is way advanced to the point where the height of the shelves, think about this for a second. If you know the zip code of the store, you can figure out the demographics of the people in that area. You can figure out the socioeconomics. Based on all of this data, 1,000 different sources of data, you can actually determine the optimal shelf height for the population that has the highest propensity to shop, to cause buying to occur more often than if you didn't do that.
Yeah, so it's a win-win there, I guess, for the companies you're working with, and also the community is getting things that are more tailored toward what they're looking for or able to do, thinking about ability even. So that's interesting. You're able to look at the human side of it for your clients' customers as well, so it works out for both. So
yeah, it's an interesting inflection point today because you'd have to be a little bit technical to understand what these things are, but people hear about cookies. And if you've been on any website and you wonder, well, why are these ads popping up? How did they know I'm in St. Louis?
Yeah, the retargeting. And
how would they know that, right? Well, simple little trick for those of you out there. If you want to go to, say you're using Internet Explorer, Google, or whatever it is.
Hopefully you're not using Internet Explorer anymore.
Yeah, I think Tyler just showed a bias there. But whatever browser you're using, there's a way to hit view source code, right? And the browser is simply figuring out what server is dishing out these pages and where is it geographically. And oh, by the way, that server, it's in Brentwood, Missouri. This person must be in the St. Louis area. Therefore, tee up the St. Louis pages and so forth and so on. That's why Charlie Gito's restaurant is showing up on your page. Now, take all of that and further refine. So some people like the idea that you get the Amazon experience, i.e., people like you also bought this. Some people like that. Tyler, if you think back, and again, I have 4 children, 3 of the oldest are in their 20s. I don't think they would ever even imagine this, but does anyone ever look at the little yellow lock in the lower right-hand corner to figure out if this is HTTPS or secure socket layer? Does anyone even care or know what that even means? People freely enter their social security numbers and credit card numbers. So as those sort of defenses and things kind of come down, causing us, especially in those that are looking to protect data, cyber and security, to look for ways to design, right? This is good design, right? Design so the user doesn't have to worry about these esoteric technology things. That's the hard part, right? Steve Jobs said fundamentally there are a number of things that Steve used to focus on, right? Around simple is really, really, really hard. By the way, again, in the Wall Street Journal, a doctor talking about how hard it is. It's so hard for her to use the navigation system in her brand new European car that she refuses to use it and yearns for the days of a design that's probably like my 1997 Ford truck. I actually have things on the doors called handles, and there's one knob on the radio. So there's that balance, right? But yeah, simple is, in technology, it's very, very hard. The last point on this thing about design and innovation. So Tyler, I'll ask you, you've used the website Google before, right?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
You've heard of it? What do you do on that website when you go there? When you hit google.com, what pops up?
I think I go straight to the Omnibar, but it's like my extension almost of my intelligence at this point, right? So I'm generally just going right to what question I have and get it answered as quickly as possible.
Right. It's a white screen with a rectangle, right?
Yeah.
Do you think Google knows why you are on that website?
Probably is a good idea of why I'm there already.
They have an idea of what your user intent is.
Yeah.
Like what you're there to do one thing. I'll tell you something. That website, that page has never changed. Never. When Yahoo started, do you Yahoo? I used to have the sticker. It was in purple and yellow, right? It looked just like that. And then it got populated with lots of other stuff.
Right. Weather and sports news and got cluttered quick.
Yeah. So this user interface, user design, right? So we've really focused in this space. We're the world's largest digital agency. We're not the Mad Men people. We don't do the creative, but we run the back office technology around digital for some of the largest companies in the world. And getting the digital experience optimized and knowing around user-focused design, we've had to acquire lots and lots and lots of companies. And Fjord is one of our larger acquisitions in that space. And they just look at the world fundamentally differently to make sure that technology is designed for our clients to lock in on the fundamental question. Do we know, and how well do we know, what the user is trying to accomplish here? That's a simple question. It's a very hard thing to do.
Very hard one. Yeah. Well, I think on that note, we're going to wrap up. But I do want to thank you for coming out to 4240 today and taking a minute to talk about what you're up to and with Accenture. And we're looking forward to having you out here again on May 25th and talking about some of this new technology and getting to see some of it in action. So,
well, thank you, Tyler. Really appreciate it. And this environment here is just wonderful because of the free flow of ideas. And back to Mr. Jobs, those collisions, right? Those serendipitous collisions. That's what makes the world go in this space. And we're looking forward to helping do that on the 25th.
Yeah, that's what we're all about. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.